I'ma get $1 million in the bank. $1 million in the bank.
What up, y'all? It's Torre, and this is Rap Latte.
And this is King Green, deeper conversations about hip hop. And today we have the great Professor Skye. Round of applause.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
You had a great video. You had a great video about the three Kendricks of Gen and X.
GNX.
GNX. I read the whole Gen X episode. I was talking GNX.
Yeah.
What are the three Kendricks of GNX? I love that.
Before I even get to there, because I want to have kind of a high energy entry here. I want to say that this podcast, this video series, is the GNX of YouTube criticism. Because 2024 was a great year for hip hop, where a whole bunch of voices that needed to be heard and listened to were all of a sudden being heard and listened to after like decades of just ignoring them for just bullshit. And all of a sudden, Justin Hunt's listened to and Rob Markman's listened to, and you guys who obviously have been listened to, but like not on YouTube, like bam, you show up and you give rap commentary, and it's like, it's just so great what you're doing. I cannot wait. I'm so happy to be a part of it, like early on when you're getting started.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was so nice. Thank you.
So this way.
So my theory on the sort of three Kendricks is, I with someone like him, especially when you're an academic, you have to be careful because you don't want to say, I figured it out, I know everything. But he does invite a sort of pluralistic take and different angles. So I just tried to sort of take what does the car mean? And for that, it's like he picked a very specific car. And if you do just the smallest amount of research into the history of the car, there's YouTube videos about it, everything just makes sense. It was made the year he was born. It was only available in black. It was, the last of a dying breed because they didn't make cars like that after that, in America at least. And so that was like the one angle. And then just the prophet stuff, just because he's always so Old Testament-y. And my dad was a preacher. I'm not really a preacher, but I studied art history and literature and stuff. So
really?
That's how I know the Bible. and just like how Old Testament he is. And when he mentioned Isaiah, I was like, what if I looked into Isaiah and tried to figure out how does that tie in? And everything about Isaiah is judgment and hope. And that's what Kendrick did, that I think so often when people judge the state of hip hop or any state of culture, it's just that negativity. But then he brought in the hope, and we didn't even know how much, he just brought all this hope that we now feel for the future by having, Dodie Six and Lefty Gunplay as opposed to Baby Keem or whatever, just all these new people, all these new sounds. And then finally, I just tried to break down just the rap stuff, just, how is he as a rapper, his different forms, I've always been a big fan of Mr. Morale, and I've always found it very complex. So I was fascinated to see how is he abandoning it? How is he incorporating it? So that was my basic take on it.
Which is a great take. I saw the video, really liked it, and seeing those different parts and how you took all these elements to create this space of three different Kendricks that exists on this album. So great video. And the best part about Kendrick, which we use this word a lot, is the density, which allows you to kind of create these connections and narratives and find so many complex ideas within the artwork, which is what great art does. So it's just amazing that you exist on the YouTube platform to have that. And for me, it was a catalyst for me and Torre to want to be on the platform too. Things like that, where we just want to dissect the hell out of this shit.
Are you saying that the three persona you're talking about, is this a difference from the Kendrick we've had before of Mr. Morale and T-Pab and Damn? Is this something different, or this triad has always existed with him?
I don't consider myself to be a super Kendrick expert. You had the Dissect guy on, I watched that episode. I enjoyed that a lot. So to me, I look at his project sort of more thing by thing. Cause I think what I like about any great artist is they don't care about losing you, they're just going to do what they're going to do. And And if they lose you and they're a great artist, that means that you were never their fan. That's the great Kanye test. Like, oh, I don't like the new Kanye. That just means you didn't like Kanye. I mean, okay, Vultures 2 was bad, but beyond that, his only bad.
I'm about to say.
Well,
I still
Jesus is King. He hasn't made a good album in several years.
Oh my! Don't get me started. Jesus is King is an amazing album. Okay, it's fine. That's not why we're here.
We're going to talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, I think it's the best service to him to really just try to put it in the context of what is he putting out right now, because he's so intentional, and so I don't really see it as like a continuation of Butterfly or of Damn or of anything more. It's just like, what can I do right now and what makes sense, and it's this like very California. I mean, the density. And when I did my year-end video, and I thought the word that keeps coming up is balance, and that's what makes GNX so much fun, because it's like this really deep and meaningful album, and reincarnated, but also reincarnated, right? Like, it's both of those. It's like, hey now, oh, how am I? Yeah, and it's all just like basically guttural nothingness mixed with his amazing ode to TDE and all that. So yeah, that wasn't really answering your question, but
yeah,
no, kind of. Well, let's do it this way. Do you see that triad in the battle? Because you did a video about the battle, right? You studied the battle, as all of us did. Do you see that happening in Kendrick in the battle?
Yeah, I guess I would say it was the lot. Like, what makes a great artist great is when they do something, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense that they would do that, but you couldn't have predicted it. So like, if he's making this whole claim for the culture, right? And the term the culture has many different terms, and just to be clear, I am not putting myself in that culture. I'm someone who's observing it, right? So when you defend and put forth the culture, and then you define what it is, and then you fight for it, and you fight who it turns out was the biggest enemy of the culture the whole time, the villain hanging out in the background. And then, like, well, what's he going to do? That album is like the thing that we wouldn't expect. Like, it's sort of like the next stage beyond, like, oh, maybe he'll just do a whole thing and he'll take out.
That's how I felt
maybe
about
he'll just
it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I was so happy that the album was what it was, even though I say that it's a mixtape because it's like presents as such. And that's what I was trying to say. Conceptually, it presents as such. But this project felt like this is exactly what we needed, something that we didn't know we were going to get. Because people think of Kendrick as the guy that's going to be super deep and you're not going to get him. And he even told you, Whacked Out Murals, it's like, look, put all that freaking double entendre shit away, because I'm about to give you this shit right now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is for the West Coast. This is for the people to dance to. This is for the kids. This is for everybody. And he had the meme records on meme records on meme records that were profound. And I think that is such a hard thing. As a songwriter myself, it's such a hard thing to make something profound that is so simple. That's like the hardest thing to do. Whereas you could be all profound with so many words and have a great diction and use big words, as people would say, but to take that and simplify it and it still have the effect to somebody's heart, wow. And that's what GNX is, and that's why it's my album of the year. Which leads to my question for you: what's your album of the year? Because
of course it's GNX. Of course it's GNX. I mean, like I think I don't know. I'm gonna get I forget who was it. It might have been John Updike or someone who said that everybody lives in. New Yorkers think that everyone who lives somewhere else must, on some level, be joking. I think it was Updike or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like
so true.
For sure.
But it's like, if you say that as far as rap albums go, if you say that GNX is not the album of the year, you must be on some level joking. Because I've watched your stuff, and what's funny was Justin Hunt and I did a whole thing about TDE or Kendrick, like who had a better year, and he released it the day the GNX came out, which made the video this
we had the same thing.
And then I watched your Tyler or Kendrick, who's having a better year, and you're like, well, Kendrick didn't release an album. If Kendrick released an album, I was going to turn it off, but I had to keep watching out of solidarity, because I'm like, they got Kendrick too. We all got Kendrick. Yeah.
We got Kendrick. He shut us up real quick. But
I
Torre
mean,
still thinks Chromacopia.
well, I do, because as great as GNX is, and it is extraordinary, as Green points out, it's a mixtape, partly because it lacks a sense of cohesion. Of great albums have a through line. We talk
Yeah.
about Off the Wall or My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy or What's Going On, or there's a sonic and perhaps character, a memoir discussion of where the artist is at that moment in their life.
Yeah.
Miseducation does this. And Tyler is talking about, here is where I am as a 30 something, about to maybe move into having kids, trying to deal with my relationship with my parents at this stage, given new information. Who am I in the world? There's a sonic thread that goes through the whole thing. So, just to me, that sort of vision to have a cohesive project is such a toweringly more difficult thing to do than to come up with 8 or 12 great songs.
I would not say that. I think you're wrong about that. As an artist, I would say that is not the truth at all. But because you could be cohesive as you want to be and have narration and have all these topics, and your songs suck. So
Yeah.
so
No, but
it's so
we're
hard. But
conceding this. But the songs don't suck, right? I
the
mean,
songs don't
the
suck.
songs
The
on
songs
Off the
don't
Wall
suck.
don't suck. The songs on Chromacopia don't suck. I mean,
I
like,
feel that, but the
obviously,
Thriller,
if the songs suck, I don't care. But like, when in De La Soul is Dead, when they're making a whole point about what it means to be in De La Soul and to be in the suburbs and to be black at this time in history, that is so, to me, that's much more meaningful than their first 3 Feet High and Rising, which is like, here's 20 songs we came up with.
Yeah.
I hear that,
But
but
Balloon Mind State's
GNX,
better than both. But yeah. In my opinion,
hey,
Balloon Mind State
yeah,
really grew on me. I hated it when it first came out, but we could have a whole De La Soul conversation. But I mean,
okay,
I think you're totally like, if I think in 10 years we'll look back and we'll be able to sort of understand what really was the best album of this year, because it's impossible to decontextualize Kendrick from GNX. So maybe with time, it wouldn't surprise me if in 10 years everyone was crazy. Everyone thought that Chromacopia wasn't the best album of the year. This is obviously the most revolutionary thing, and everyone followed that pattern and moved forward. I think it's very, very possible, but
that's a good
in
point.
conjunction with the beef, like, we just can't. I can't. But anyways,
No, but let me say
I
this
have
about
heard,
that statement. Let me say this about that statement, because when we had our Chromacopia Tyler Kendrick conversation, I said that I remember saying that after listening to Chromacopia, a lot of other music felt stale. Right? I remember saying that. And that's a true thing. The same way when I heard 808s, I didn't think it was the greatest album right away, but I knew instantly this is going to change things, because this
yeah,
is different. This is me, blog era. I'm a kid, and I'm like listening to this, like, yo, this is amazing. I felt the same way when I heard Chromacopia as a 808s, as a Love Below. Like, it felt like, oh, this feels like people are going to think about things differently. But GNX, I felt the same way I felt about listening to Ready to Die. Like, I felt like, what is this? This guy changed my thoughts on how to do this thing. People are not recognizing how he's rapping different. And I think that's the thing that gets the least attention. I keep bringing it back up. Like, he's rapping different than everybody.
the part of the thing I come down on in this conversation also is that Tyler has been presenting himself to us over the years as a certain person. He has created a world, right, within his music, and his mother and his father, along with Earl and other people, are a critical part of his world. His father, mirroring the experience of so many African Americans, at least of my generation, his father was the villain of his world. He, right, in his first big song, he's like dissing his father right away. And now, come to find out, after all these years, what he believed about his father is wrong, and now he has to recontextualize his relationship. So the character of Tyler, who we've been dealing with for 14 years in these records, has to change immensely. And I found even that whole notion very difficult. I mean, within an African American family context, to say you are like your father is a very fraught thing for in many families, good, bad, whatever. It's very heavy. So just Tyler dealing with all these sort of things about his real life is extraordinarily powerful to me.
You're right. I mean, that's why I say I like Skye's point about like we're gonna have to recontextualize this in 5 years, right? Like we're gonna have to think about this, but I'm slapping them GNX like peekaboo, nigga,
Tell me,
peekaboo.
tell
What
me,
they talk about? They
tell,
talk about none. What they talking about? They talking
you
about
know,
none. Like,
I, I find you know, a lot of people. You had a great video about that. Hip hop is the most important artistic movement of our lifetime, and I
No, of
think
all time.
of all time,
Yeah.
even more.
Yep.
I agree.
Why? What's your thesis there?
Well, so I mean, I studied art history. I studied French, literature. So I have a doctorate in humanities. So I've spent a lot of time studying art and movements and all that kind of
Tu
stuff.
parles français?
And, bien sûr, je suis
Oh,
professeur de français. Mais malheureusement, on n'a plus de programme de français. Alors comme ça, j'enseigne le hip-hop.
oh,
Okay, we
d'accord.
just lost 50 viewers.
Yes,
Please
I
keep
know.
going in English.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes. Well, so I mean, I actually am just grading the finals of the French hip hop class that I teach in English. So,
That's crazy.
um, but yeah,
I'm
so
sorry, you teach a class about French hip hop in English? That's what you mean, like a
yes,
history
I do.
of French hip hop.
Yes,
Interesting.
yep,
Interesting.
yep, yeah.
Wait,
Well, I mean,
hold
that's
on.
what.
Doing
Hold on.
God's
Yes,
work.
Who is the central, because I know nothing about French hip hop. Who is the
yes.
central figure who I need to listen to start to understand what's going on over there?
The best album to listen to it's called L'École du Micro d'Argent, which is by a band called I Am. It came.
Okay.
I
School of what
discovered this
money?
album.
L'école de...
It's actually the microphone, silver microphone.
Oh, but I thought you said
Le,
l'école.
micro, yeah, L'École du Micro d'Argent by
Oh,
I Am.
micro. Okay, d'accord.
Yes, and so they're out of Marseille, and they've been around forever, and they have this whole fascinating story where they were into like kung fu and stuff before Wu Tang showed up, and then Wu Tang and Mobb Deep showed up, and then I Am figured out how to do what they did while at the same time already having done a lot of that kind of stuff in their music before. And when I was waiting for Wu Tang Forever to come out, because I don't know if you remember what it was like, but like Wu Tang Forever was just about to come out for it seemed like 3 years or something. We were just
Mm-hmm.
waiting. So I was in Quebec, and I was with my girlfriend, and I was just looking around. I was like, look at this stupid CD. The French make hip hop. This is going to be funny, and I bought it as a joke. I ended up like doing my honors thesis in college on that album. I moved to Marseille just so I could see where the music came from. It is like probably up there with the best sampling in rap history. I did a whole video about the sampling. The MCs are good, and it's the and this is actually ties into your question. Why do I call it the most important art form in human history? Because there's the two elements, and I think rarely do people focus on both of them at the same time. So it's of course it is for and by Black Americans, documenting their experience, their feelings, emotions, humanity, life, all that. But because it is such an easily repeatable gift, it's a tool, right? It was like, whatever, Ashka Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash invented the hammer, you know what I mean? And they
Mm-hmm.
just threw it all over the world. And all you have to do to make hip hop is just have a voice and a table, right? Or you don't even necessarily need a table. That's all you need. The metaphor I come up with is, rock and roll is hockey, and hip hop is soccer. It's just like anybody can pick it up. So when you study
Mm-hmm.
hip hop around the world, what you find is the voiceless in every single civilization, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, religion, or whatever it is, wherever it is that people feel like they don't have a voice, hip hop showed up and they said, well, okay, I can just do this. And you can understand cultures through this amazingly powerful tool, which was,
Mm-hmm.
developed in the Bronx in 1970s, which was shorthand for like the worst place on earth. So it makes sense that like that's where this tool would be crafted. So that's why I make
And the
that kind of
amalgamation of
statement.
the people, like the diaspora
Mm-hmm.
that was in the Bronx,
Yeah,
like all that kind of helped create that. It was just a perfect storm for that
yeah,
situation. What do you think
yeah.
about
And the
that,
So
drug
Kendrick?
war.
And the
yes,
drug
And
war,
the
yeah.
drug
yeah.
war.
And
And
because
the
it's
drugs and violence.
well, but because like what interests me the most as a someone who's trying to teach the humanities is just how does it reflect what's going on? Like that's the only way that it's interesting. Is like the main way that art is interesting is how it reflects humanity and its different states. And so rap music does such a great job because if you really want to understand America in the 1980s, you just listen to Dope Man. You listen to Dope Man, you listen to Fight the Power, you realize they came out within the same year, and you're like, oh, this was the battle for America's soul. And I guess we lost because all we're going to do is Dope Man from now.
I love that perspective, and I noticed that 80s hip hop, 90s hip hop, it definitely has a tremendous amount of socio-political import to what you're saying. We are really explaining what's going on in our world because of the drug war, because of suburbia, because of things that are going on in the urban environment, what have you. The double O's, this starts to go away a little bit, and modern hip hop, this kind of doesn't generally have, Kendrick aside, doesn't generally have the socio-political import of the hip hop that you and I are talking about, that we grew up loving and understanding. This is a reflection of what the Black community is about. So how do we wrestle with that political spine and that socio-political import is kind of edging out of hip? I mean, this is part of why I dislike Drake so much, because there's really no socio-political aspect to his movement, where Kendrick is absolutely that in multiple ways. So I'm like, I understand you, I get you, I love that about you, and you don't bring that at all, Drake. Like, damn, like that, like this is what hip hop is supposed to be about. So what do we do with that?
Well, I have an answer. So, like, just because you're not talking about it doesn't mean you're not reflecting it, right? So that's why
Of course.
That's why I find gangster rap so fascinating, because if someone is talking about being a crack dealer and all they're talking about is being a crack dealer and being addicted to opiates, it's like that is very much a political act unknowingly. You're not trying to talk about the problems of our society. So I think that it just requires that. It's sort of like, if you really want to, like with movies, if you want to understand what a society feels, you don't go and watch the movie that wins the Oscar. You watch the horror movie and see, what are they afraid of? You watch 28 Days Later in 2005 or whenever that came out, and you're like, damn, people were super scared about, and you just say whatever, terrorism, whatever it is. So that's, and that's probably why I don't like Drake, is what he reflects is not as interesting to me, because it's more of a personal emptiness. It's not a sort of like reflection of society as much, although his personal emptiness is important, because like, I mean, like I'm someday, because I don't really do like essays as much as I do like reviews, and there's not going to be albums coming out. I'm going to do a deep dive of Drake alone in front of his pool, just playing on slots, because I think that is like going to be his enduring artistic expression. It's like, I got to win big.
Well, let me talk.
I mean, I'm sorry, wait, Creed. If he was reflecting what we see as young male loneliness, or just male loneliness and male struggle to interact with women, like, I feel like he's talking about those things, but you don't represent those things. You're not speaking to male loneliness, the male loneliness epidemic in the country that all these essays have spoken to.
He does. I think he.
Do you think he does?
I think he completely does, and that's why he resonates with people, because I think he is a reflection of where men have gotten in America and a lot of modern society, and then became a reflection of men fighting back with this red pillness. So think about Drake's beginning narrative. It's like, hey baby, love me. Why don't you love me like you love him? I could be, I'm emotional. I could be a caretaker and that emotive guy. And then it flips over like, you're the reason why I can't find a woman. Like, you guys are all messed up. And it's like, she used to do this and then she did this. You text me and I text you back, and then we text. And it becomes that narrative that red pillars could kind of evolve from. So I think he is reflecting a certain sect, but like Skye just said, it's an emptiness. So when you have Public Enemy and Chuck D, and I don't know if that's Skye's generation or not too, and then I have either Kendrick or Jay-Z and Mos Def and Talib. Like, this is early 2000s is me. So I have the underground, and then I have the mainstream, and everybody's saying something from Eminem to Jay-Z. Everybody's reflecting something that is larger than themselves when you really dissect their music. If like you dissect Marshall Mathers LP, that's pretty a lot of depth in Marshall Mathers LP.
Yes.
Politically.
Yes.
And that's why I love that album so much. So I agree that that's been lost, but I think the generations have been lost. I think as Americans, as a modern society, we've lost because there's a lot of things that have changed. And a lot of the struggles that Gen X had, we didn't have. And a lot of struggles that we had, Gen Z didn't have. So it's like they feel lost in this space, and everything's an amalgamation of everything that ever existed on planet Earth. Who am I? What do I matter? Like I'm wearing clothes from 2000s and the 90s, the 70s and the 20s. Like, think of how people look. Think about what they do with their time. It's just we're lost, and some people, and throughout all generations, that emptiness I think exists, and that's what Drake reflects, and he kind of feels the void of that feeling. But I think that other people after him, someone like Playboy Carti, which I want to drive a question because me and Skye had a little bit text back and forth. I think he represents that more in a realistic and holistic way for this generation, because I think it's such a barrier or entry for people like who care about lyricism so much to not understand the art that he's doing. And I don't want to like herald him like he's the most genius artist, but I just want people to understand what's happening with him more so than be like, oh, he's better than Tupac. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a reason why this exists. And there is a brilliance behind it and an understanding of his influence and what he's doing that a lot of people don't give him credit for. That's all. And other people like Uzi is before that. And I would say Kanye's the Picasso to this Mondrian and everyone else, actually. Or coming to Jackson Pollock, which I think JPEG Mafia would be Jackson Pollock. So since you know art, I want you to speak to that whole notion.
Well, I mean, like Playboy Carti, like I don't blame people for not seeing Playboy Carti as being different than Uzi or Lil this guy or Lil that guy or this guy or whatever. Like it takes a lot of faith. You have to really believe in somebody to say this is great. And of course, for me, almost everything starts and ends with Kanye. So when Kanye put his stamp on Whole Lotta Red, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take this seriously as though Kanye is sitting in the room and telling me, listen to this. And if Kanye tells me to listen to something, I'm going to listen to it and treat it as seriously as I would as if I was at the Picasso Museum in France, right? Like I would take that seriously. And so with that in mind, like it helped me to understand, because as a, dude in his late 40s, it's everything that I hate. But like, that's part of why I started the channel, actually, because like I didn't, like I actually had this prop here. I've been cleaning up my son's room. It's the Travis Scott Reese's Puffs. And this was how I like this is, I had this before I ever even listened to his music. And then, I'm just, to me, it was just all that stuff. But like Playboy Carti is so much the logical end of an idea. And that idea is, it might actually be, okay, I'm really going to piss off Tori here. He might actually be realizing what the Bomb Squad was trying to do. So
say that again?
The Bomb Squad.
Bomb
Squad, when they produced Public Enemy, they were on record as saying their goal was to destroy music. Like that was why you had that crazy JB sound, just drove everybody crazy. Like Playboy Carti destroys music, destroys art, destroys lyricism. Like, my most successful video before the beef was my concert review, because I went and saw him play with my teenage son, and I was totally aware that he wasn't there. There was no doubt that he wouldn't come to Rochester, New York, which is where I live now. But like, he wasn't there, but it didn't matter. It was still one of the best shows I've ever seen. And like, I understood it. It was like when my parents saw the Velvet Underground.
What do you mean he wasn't there?
Like, I don't think he was there. Like, but like it was, they just pressed play on a CD. There was smoke everywhere. And the only sound that would come from a microphone was, that was it. No words, nothing. for like an hour and a half, and there was some guy who
And everybody
could have
paid
been
for that
him.
shit.
Not what I paid for. I'd pay for it again. I would scalp tickets for it. Like, it was an
Wow.
amazing experience. And the thing is, it was, and this is, this is where, as a white guy, I get to call stuff racist. I think it's racism that we don't see that, because he's doing something that is totally avant-garde, but we don't call it that because he's a young guy from Atlanta and because he's uneducated.
I
or
100% agree with that point. I think there's a prejudice, but even prejudice against youth. I think there's a prejudice against the culture. There's a prejudice against race, right? Because someone says in a comment, they were like, "Well, is this intentional? Is he doing this intentional?" I'm like, yeah, he made his music intentionally. What are you talking about? It's implicit, and the context is there.
Wait.
I'm an analyst analyzing the art, and I'm telling you, I'm making the connections between this abstraction, right? That's there, no matter what. That's an objective and analytical perspective. Whether he intended to make this music because of this art that I just referenced it to, no. Who says he even knows what the hell I'm talking about?
Wait, hold on. I want to ask you guys both to try something, because Green had a great clip earlier this week where he likened Carti to Mondrian, in that we know what the landscape looks like, so we don't need to actually give you the whole landscape. We can give you a piece of it or a structure of it, and you understand what that is. And that's what Carti. So to Green, Carti is the Mondrian of today. Okay.
Yes.
So both of you have been to art school deep. So who is Drake as far as the painters and artists of our time? Is he Jeff Koons, in that there is something big and shiny and empty about him? Is it Warhol, because it's not? He's trying to reflect real life, but it's not like what. And I'm not trying to diss him. I love Koons, but we do see that he's trying to talk about the emptiness of the modern world and the toys that he's making for the rich. Or is there somebody else? Who is it? Is it Damien Hirst? Like, who is Drake in an art context?
I go with Koons.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because like I made a lot of positive reviews of Drake. I actually think, honestly, Nevermind's a good album, but like I don't even know. Like, I would say he's more like Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? Like a really good, a really well designed brand with constant messaging and sort of an, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like this is our most deaf moment. Like, I tried to set you up to be like, you can go to Koons, you can go to Deschamps. You're like, no, it's Target. He's Target.
Like, if you think of Coca-Cola as an artistic brand, he would be that.
Yeah.
I said Warhol, and you said no. Coca-Cola.
No.
Like, okay, all right, there we go.
Well, it's funny with the Mos Def thing, because like before I heard Mos Def's quote, I came up with that Drake is the soundtrack of a group of teenage boys on their cell phone not talking to each other. Like, that was how I pictured his music. And like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, anyways. It's not as pithy.
Yo, y'all really want to make this list? Y'all really want to make the op list?
I'm gonna make it next time. God,
yeah, I know. We all want to be there. We're all so jealous.
Wow,
that's so funny. Yeah, I mean,
what do you do with Kanye? Because I know you've thought a lot about art and the whole notion of what do we do with the artist's misdeeds off the stage, and it's hard to even say off stage because Kanye keeps talking about it in the music. Yeah. So I'm like, you don't even allow me to forget all the crap. You keep referencing it. But like, we've had this discussion around Woody Allen and Roman Polanski and other people, like, and the level of the misdeed definitely shapes what the critic is doing as far as relationship to the art. But like, we have a world where the guy makes incredible music and we like the music, but also he's done things that I think have probably insulted you and offended you personally, as well as your sense of what people should be saying in the world. So what do we do with Kanye at this point?
I mean, I try to contextualize everything. I try to like use a lot of precaution, and whenever I talk about Kanye, I express, that he is hurting people actively, and being a white supremacist is never good, right? And he supports white supremacist ideas. His anti-Semitism is an expression of white supremacy, right? It's not. I mean, it is also anti-Semitism, but that's at least how I read it. But really, he's just unwell, and I think that's kind of different than say, than Picasso, right? I mean, Picasso absolutely did not treat women well and was a complete jerk, and we all know that, and we all just kind of accept it and kind of go. So,
Bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, with Kanye, because so much of it too, like, because I mean, when Picasso said, when he says, "I'm the next Picasso," I say, "No, you're not, Kanye. You're more than Picasso was." And when he says, "I'm the next Bezos," I'm like, Bezos is a fucking clown compared to you, Kanye. That's absolutely ridiculous, right? Like, that's where I place Kanye in the sort of world of artists, because he really is that important. And again, the reason that people laugh at me and him when we say that, I suppose it could be something other than race, but it probably isn't. But yeah, so I just try to keep talking, like, I mean, Vultures One was a very good album with a lot of fascinating ideas, and it failed in a lot of different ways.
No,
Vultures Two,
no, I'm gonna stop you right
absolute
there.
Wow.
dog
No,
shit.
it wasn't.
Wow.
Yes, it was.
Wow. Wow.
What about you?
Vultures won.
Vultures
Wow.
Oh, I love Kanye just like Kanye love Kanye. Okay, like Kanye, and I'm a person that separates things because I do zoom out. I zoom out
Yeah.
and I think about time just like that. And just like you said with Picasso, there's so many bad things about people who did great things, bad things that they've done about people who did great things that we either don't know or we sweep under the rug. And we still live in a lot of their concepts and live in a lot of their worlds. All these things that we've constructed, the world we live in is constructed by a lot of people who did bad shit. Like, if we're going to be real about it. So I think about that and separate these things and look at what it means to the world and what it means to the world of art, what it means to the world of technology. And I just keep it in that vacuum, because if I like bleed it over, I could just talk about how we're supporting mines in Africa right now just by like being on the internet. Like I can't take my mind off of these things, so I have to.
Oh, come on!
Think about it.
Really?
I
you
can make a
fucking kidding
conclusion.
me?
I can make a. You could draw the conclusion. Don't hit me with a fucking kill. You could draw the conclusion if you think that much. That's why I keep things where they are.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing right now by saying, "Are you kidding me?" It's like I can make a conclusion to that, but we keep things in our own space because that's how we like to do it. And whenever it feels uncomfortable, that's when we start trying to tell you what's what and who it. How it's leaking over to another space. So best with Kanye, number one thing, that Vultures album was trash, Skye. And number two thing,
Vultures 2 was trash.
Oh my,
good.
Yeah, and number two thing is
God.
like he is. I see him as someone that is tackling a lot of mental health issues and dealing with a problem in a world
but
that
I don't. Think
not to say that
it
exempts him in any way.
No, it doesn't exempt him. Being mentally unwell, and I think we are clear that he's bipolar and some other things, doesn't make you racist, doesn't make you anti-Semitic, doesn't make you, want to be a white supremacist. And so I think it's a separate vector in his life. He has mental issues. That's there. He is being racist, anti-Black, and anti-Semitic publicly and performing a form of, I guess, I don't know what he's doing with Kim or was doing with Kim. It was very triggering to a lot of people, who are dealing with like difficult divorces. That's different. That's who he is. That's and all that entitlement that he brings to that and arrogance. That's core to who he is as an MC.
I agree with you, but are you going to stop listening to College Dropout?
I can tell you that. I mean, I don't listen. No. I don't listen to the early stuff anyway, because the stuff after that became so much more complex that the first three albums were no longer interesting to me.
My point is saying, do you still listen to Dark Fantasy? Would you still listen to it?
I find listening to Kanye fraught and complicated, and I can't not see images of him, sitting with Donald Trump and sitting with Alex Jones and these sort of things when I'm trying to just rock with the rhymes. And like, it's like he is trying to push me out of liking him. Like, you like my music?
It's possible.
What if
Yeah.
I said something anti-Semitic? Would you still like it?
What,
What if I
once
said
they
something
like you, make them
anti-black?
unlike you.
What
Right?
if I was pro-slavery? Would you still like it? Like, God damn, nigga, you trying to make me not like you? Like, what the fuck?
I think
It's hard. It's hard.
I can
It's
agree.
hard to
No,
rock
I can agree
Kanye.
with that. That I don't listen to it at the same clip, but I don't think that it's trash now. I think that's my point. That I don't go and be like, "Oh, Dark Fantasy's trash." Have I listened to
I don't
it?
think
Did I
it's
listen to it last night?
trash. I don't think it's trash, but he has created noise in the relationship between
agree.
me and his music.
I agree with
And
that. Yeah, I
and,
agree
and a
with
professor can weigh in on that. Like, is there not noise between the speaker and your mind as you're like bringing this in? You're like, yeah, but he's anti-Semitic and this and that and anti-racist and like.
Yes, but there's like so much to that. So I mean, first of all, like, my dad saw James Brown perform in Pittsburgh in 1968, and he said it was fine, but it was a little bit intimidating because he was the only white person there. And then I told him, "Do you know how great James Brown is?" He's like, "Nah, man, he like hung out with Nixon and stuff, so we never listened to James Brown in our house." I was like, "You never listened to James Brown because he was friends with Nixon?" And like he was, and like James Brown, obviously, he was a terrible human being in a lot of different ways, but like I will never stop listening to James Brown. I don't think about any of that when I listen to James Brown. I think time has done a lot for that. I mean, there's that static all the time with everything. I mean, I just recently watched your interview with Ghostface Killah, who's like, one of my absolute favorites. And I saw the oh no moment where he's like, I can't get an apartment in a Jewish neighborhood. And you're like, so
I didn't see that interview.
Well, you helped him not cancel himself, but it's like we sort of understand that Ghostface is like a savant lyricist, but like he doesn't express himself very clearly, right? Like that's just a weird combination that he has, and like I could have taken that and been like, oh, this is proof that Ghostface Killah is an anti-Semitic jerk or all that, or I could be like, well, also, the conditions that he grew up in and the places that he moves and the spaces that he's in. I can sort of contextualize things in a certain way, and I'm still going to listen to Supreme Clientele. You know what I mean? I didn't mean to bring in your other show, Toure, but I was just
No, it's fine. But Kanye has said this over and over and over. And he wants you to think of himself. He's not like a slip because he's
Yeah.
I think Ghostface is undereducated on that subject, and that's why he was saying.
Yeah.
Kanye presents himself as an intellectual who is hyper educated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
who doesn't read. Who doesn't read? Like, there's no way of being an intellectual who doesn't read. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Kanye got into his Bezos, Elon Musk era, and yes, I don't mess with that version of Kanye, and it does impact the listening. But I'm saying I think I still look at the work as it is. And when we think about 20 years after, like, what are people 20 years from now? How are they going to talk about it? I think that's what he's talking about with the Nixon thing. Like, no one's bringing up that James Brown was friends with Nixon. I didn't even know that. Like, I just learned that right now.
I mean,
went to the White House.
I knew that. That's a function of age. Yeah, I mean, that's a function of age. I knew that.
But you see how I didn't know that?
Affect me, and it does lead to what you're saying about time changes things. But we did not have a deep emotional relationship to what Nixon was doing and why Black people disliked him in a way that reminiscent of Trump in 2016. But like, I mean, the shit that Kanye has done is just so fucking plain. And it's just right there in front of everybody. Because it may be that people in the future are like, how could they have continued to listen to him? Like, what was wrong with them? I mean, I don't know.
Or after 2 more years of Trump, the world changed and people are like, Kanye's nobody caught the 2 more years of Trump. So nobody got that.
You teach a class about French hip hop. Do you teach hip hop in other ways?
Yeah, so basically, I was a French professor. I don't ever talk about my college because, I mean, they're not against me doing this, but I don't represent them. So anyways, I'm at a small public liberal arts college in Western New York. And so they had a French program, but no one wants to speak another language in America because of linguistic hegemony, linguistic colonialism. So like I had to figure out like other stuff to do. And so I went to the chair of the African American Studies department, and I was like, I think we should start a hip hop minor. And he was like, "That's great. I like gospel music. I don't mess with hip hop. So if you want to do it, you do all the work and you figure it out." And we had this whole kind of conversation about it. And at a certain
That's
point,
dope.
he was like, oh, you actually like this stuff? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not a grifter. Like this is I'm not joking. When I say that, I was listening to the Fat Boys when I was a kid, I mean it. I'm not making that up. So I created like this minor that's mostly classes in that department in African American studies, and then I created a class on French hip hop and then a class on American hip hop and rap music. So I basically go between
You do
those. And
you do a general history of hip hop.
yeah, and
Fly.
I'm really proud of that. There's a series on my channel called Teaching Hip Hop or something like that, where I go over some of my lesson plans and everything, because there's like a way that hip hop is taught, which is good, and I'm not going to insult anybody who's done it that way, but they sort of act like once Jay Dilla and MF Doom died, like, okay, we're done. Like, and we finished. Hip hop is officially ended. And things are now over. So like I do a huge emphasis on like the nowness of it and bring everyone to Atlanta, mentally and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's fire.
I taught a class at NYU once about the prehistory of hip hop and the
Right.
non-musical people from the 60s who inspire and the 70s who inspired the people who created hip hop. So we should have you back and try to talk through some of that stuff, because like it doesn't just begin with Kool Herc. There was a lot of stuff going on before then that led to that moment.
I mean, I'm the more I read H-Rap Brown, the more I'm like, how is this not? Because Gil Scott Heron gets a lot of credit, and he deserves a lot of credit for being one of the first. But like H-Rap Brown, like Rapper's Delight quotes H-Rap Brown. It could not be any more clear, like
right.
Despite the fact I can never say the name of his book, it's so important to like communicate. I have my students read it. I'm like, I'm just not going to say any of it, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's.
My God, Richard Pryor to me is one of the key prehistorical figures, and I was trying to discuss Richard Pryor with a room full of mostly young white people. There were a lot of black and brown people in the room, and like to talk about Richard Pryor, where half the room is like can't say the N-word. It's like this is weird. You can't talk about Rich without saying the N-word, but they're all like, "Oh my God!" Like weird.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But here we are.
Definitely, here we are.
Yeah, it's like it's funny though, because like I went to college in I graduated in 2000, and so I wrote that paper about about the French rap group and everything, but like hip hop academia didn't really exist. It was actually like I just read Hip Hop America by Nelson George. I read that in, I think it's 98, 99 when that came out, and I was just like, holy shit, this is the greatest thing I've ever read. This is what I want to do. And then like I don't know, I didn't have the imagination or something. I was like 23 or whatever, and so I just sort of thought, all right, fine, I'll just like study French and 17th century literature and all that stuff. And then like over time I realized that like, oh my God, there's so much great literature, there's so much great academic takes on it, and there's so much space for people who have an academic training and actually give a fuck about rap. Like often like you have to fake one or the other, and so to like have that combination, that's what I love about this moment, is we're seeing a lot of people who have the smarts and the genuine love, and they don't have to fake either of those. So yeah,
that is the beautiful thing, and that's what led us to this conversation, and we're going to end the conversation here. This was amazing.
Thank you.
We're gonna have you again. We gotta have you again.
Great, yeah. Like seriously, anytime. I watch all your guys' stuff, and I'm still catching up on all your interviews, Toure, on the other channel. But
thanks. There's a couple over there.
And I also wanted to say that I'm fascinated because I did a little bit of research on you, Green, and I listened to the song, the $1 Million song, and you have that lyric in there about like, what is it, like fuck doing hip hop, do YouTube, like you have like a there. So like I was thinking about that's what I did with academia. Like I was trying to be an academic. I was trying to be a good French professor and write articles people would care about in 17th century literature. And everything kept on going away. And then I just started this channel as to have some place where anybody would care about anything that I think or say. So anyways, I wish I had that lyric in my head from before, because I'd be able to kind of bring that up.
Yeah.
That was fuck him up to YouTube.
That was definitely my whole idea, even writing that, because that whole song is about like art versus commerce. So thinking about, this is what YouTubers are doing. And if you just put out music videos, you're basically a YouTuber. A rapper is a YouTuber nowadays. We're all just kind of content creators, like everybody. So just thinking about it differently. But thank you so much, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
For 0.003 cents. And
that's right.
We're gonna head out. That's Rap Latte.
Peace.